Hello dear Motorsport-Magazin.com friends and Formula One fans. Imola is on the agenda next weekend. The premier class of motorsport is finally coming to Europe. And for you, the European season opener means, on the one hand, no more getting up so early or staying up so late to watch the races. On the other hand, for you it means updates. But is that still the case? We explain why this is not necessarily the case, which update we are still looking forward to the most, and how the updates are going so far this season. Why aren't there quite as many updates as there used to be? It has to do with the racing calendar. In terms of the calendar, the European season opener has remained relatively stable, but in terms of the racing calendar, it has slipped back significantly. The racing calendar continues to grow. This means that more and more overseas races are being added, and also many overseas races before the European season opener. This means that Imola is already race number 7 in the 2024 Formula One season. We are already a quarter of the way through the record racing calendar with 24 Grands Prix, and only then will we get to Europe. Traditionally, or young traditionally if you like, Barcelona has always been the European opener. It was race 4 or 5 on the racing calendar. And until then, the teams had time to develop and then brought the big packages. On the one hand, of course, Barcelona was a predestined test track. On the other hand, of course, because it makes logistical sense to bring updates when you don't have such a long journey, the parts can then be developed for longer because less time is lost to logistics. Spare parts can be delivered quickly, so that makes sense. Now it's already race number 7. That means you have to be patient until then. That's why many teams have already brought in very, very big updates. But one team that has not yet brought out a major update is Ferrari. And we are very excited about that. Ferrari has already announced that something is coming. We didn't know for sure. Was it perhaps already in Miami? No, it wasn't. So now it's in Imola. Ferrari have never wanted to officially confirm this 100%. But we all assume that the big package will come in Imola. The drivers have high hopes for it. Charles Leclerc said that our update will define the rest of the season. Those are strong words. He also said that it will hopefully be a significant step. And it's rare in modern Formula One to talk about significant steps with updates. They are often significant steps. Let's talk about that in a moment. But the teams rarely admit that. That's why team boss Fred Vasseur has put the brakes on a bit of euphoria. He doesn't believe that it will be such a game changer, but a 10th can actually be a game changer because the field is so close together. But if we think back a bit, when Carlos Sainz won the Grand Prix in Melbourne, people asked whether he might now be a competitor for Red Bull in the championship. Then he said that he didn't think so in the World Championship, because when the update comes, which he hopes for a lot, then the World Championship might already be over. So we've often heard between the lines from the drivers at Ferrari that there could be something bigger. We don't know exactly what at the moment, but we definitely know that Ferrari have made quite a few technical changes to the car for the 2024 season. We've talked a lot about the concept. You can also take a look at the old videos. Perhaps we will get a taste of this package even before the Imola Grand Prix, as the Italian media have reported that there will be a test in Fiorano at the end of this week. A test for the spray guards, i.e. the mud guards that are supposed to prevent the spray, but also a film day. In other words, a real filming day for Ferrari. 200 kilometers are allowed this season. The spray test is outside of these regulations, and on this film day you could already see the updates on the car. Why is that allowed? It's not a Pirelli test, not a tire test, but a movie day. You're allowed to do that. So if it's a film day, I'm hoping for actual pictures and maybe video footage. Maybe you can even see it here now. Let's take a look at how the updates for the 2024 season has gone so far, because I said we've already seen some big updates. But what exactly did they look like, and who has been the update king so far? As always, caution is advised here, because quality does not equal quantity. Quantity also does not mean that if there are so and so many items in the list, that these are big updates. So be careful, but there is at least a small clue. McLaren actually brought the most updates in first place with 13 updates in these first 6 races. That's quite a lot. Aston Martin in second place with 12 and Racing Bulls in third with 10. The Racing Bulls are the new AlphaTauri, so to speak, and AlphaTauri was already at the top of the update list last year. Similar to McLaren, by the way, so the trend is continuing there. There are different approaches. Some teams bring out every mini update as soon as they see that it will bring something. Others tend to bring larger packages. Of course, this also depends on what the budget cap looks like, so that is definitely interesting. It also becomes interesting when we look further back to position 6, for example, Alpine with 7 updates. However, it has to be said that although they have already become significantly faster this season, this list only gives us the aerodynamic surfaces. In other words, if you have some weight reduction, which was definitely the case with Alpine, then it doesn't appear there. And weight reduction is actually the thing that brings the most benefits, but you can rarely achieve it because at some point you reach the minimum weight. That's probably the case for all teams now. Mercedes in 7th position with 6 updates, on a par with Haas, by the way. They've changed the system a bit. Last year they didn't bring anything for ages. Now they've already brought out 2 packages. The third package, or the package that completes the real package, will come in Imola. Ferrari and Sauber are actually in last place with only 5 updates so far this season. Of course, these 5 updates always include track-specific items. Mercedes and Alpine are relatively far behind so far this 2024 season. But that should change because both have made a disastrous start to the season. Both disastrous at different levels, but far from what you would actually expect by their own standards. You can find out exactly what is going wrong with the teams in our print edition. Issue number 96, abo.motorsport-magazin.com. If you haven't got it yet, maybe you're a bit late with Father's Day presents, then you can also buy a voucher at gutshine.motorsport-magazin.com. I've already announced the update kings of the season, and Red Bull is relatively high up, still a long way away from McLaren with 8 updates, but 4 of these 8 updates came in Japan, and that was a bigger package that we perhaps didn't expect from Red Bull so early on. They've already made quite a few changes to their car over the winter, which we hadn't expected, and then there's another relatively large package. You could also see that they made a leap straight away. It's always difficult to judge whether it's the track characteristics or the update that has made a difference. What specifically has changed on the RB20? Once again, we've seen a new arrangement of the radiators, which was already the big trend at Red Bull over the winter. However, they have now found additional openings that can be fitted somewhere. We've already seen the relatively unique openings on the inside of the halo before. Now there are also openings on the outside of the headrest, and the aim is to make the air openings, the inlets on the side box, even smaller because they interfere more with the aerodynamics. At the same time, you don't want to ensure that the rear of the car becomes more inflated, that the air comes out somewhere where you don't want it to, and that's why you push it back and forth. Some people thought that this new opening made the gills superfluous, but that was actually only the case in Japan, when the temperatures were a bit lower. At the next race in China, or most recently at the Miami Grand Prix, these gills were seen again. So I'm curious about that. Red Bull is taking this to an extreme, building the air vents where they are a little less disruptive. We will certainly see this from other teams as well, but we are definitely already seeing it at McLaren. They brought the biggest update of the season so far to Miami. 10 of their 13 updates came at the Miami Grand Prix alone, and actually it would be easier to say what they haven't updated than to tell you what's new. Rear wing and nose, maybe you'll find something else, but let's start at the front. The front wing has been revised a bit, the front axle has been revised, and at the same time as the front axle, the front brake vents, side pods, cooling system, engine cover, underbody, rear axle, brake vents on the rear axle, and the B moving, so that was quite a lot. And Lando Norris promptly won the race. But of course, what we've just said about Red Bull also applies here. Just because the weekend goes well doesn't mean that the updates have had such an impact, track specific, and of course there was also a bit of safety car luck involved. But Lando Norris himself said that without the update it would have been much less likely that we would have won this race. You could already see hints of this performance in the free practice sessions. You couldn't really implement it. It was a very strange weekend in terms of the tires and the asphalt. But what we also saw, or at least what we heard from McLaren, is that the figures that you got beforehand in the simulation and in the wind tunnel were in line with reality. And you could make a wonderful comparison because Lando Norris had the full update package. Oscar Piastri in the second McLaren had the light update package, which means he didn't get all the new parts. And of course, you had a very good comparison. But now I'm curious to see whether that was an outlier, whether it was track specific, of course, also a bit triggered by the safety car, or whether that's a new picture with McLaren against Red Bull, and then I'm curious to see what the Ferrari update delivers on the track. Of course, we'll see all that in Imola. We'll be there for you again, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and you'll get the updates straight from the paddock.